If there's one thing I've learned as you get a little bit older is that there's just a lot of stuff that's never going to mean anything. It's just not going to matter in your life, but you're still going to spend too much time thinking about it. Yes, your family, your health, your happiness, these are real things. But this actually applies even more so to sports because there are certain franchises that we spend so much time obsessing over and wondering what these negative things mean long term, when in reality, they may not mean anything and they may not actually have any negative impact. And there's no better example of this than your NBA champion, Los Angeles Lakers. The history started going bad in about 2013. Kobe was still the main guy with his Lakers team. It was right after that year where they had a bunch of injuries. Kobe was then, off that Achilles injury at age 35, handed a 2-year, $48.5 million contract extension that nobody in the basketball world thought was a good idea, except for maybe Kobe and the Buss family. And that meant that with Kobe under contract for a couple more years, in 2014, the Lakers were going to go big game hunting, bringing in one of the big-time free agents. And those names were LeBron James, who said no and went back to Cleveland. Carmelo Anthony, who also said no and decided to stay in New York. And granted, he got that extra year, so it makes sense. Bosh said no. Even Kyle Lowry said no. Pau Gasol decided to go to Chicago. And after that, people started wondering, wait, does no one want to play with Kobe Bryant? And it was kind of true because it looked like nobody wanted to play with Kobe Bryant. And then you remember that quote from Jeannie Buss about players that didn't want to play with Kobe?
Any free agent that would be afraid to play with Kobe Bryant is probably a loser, and I'm glad they wouldn't come to the team.
So were all of these guys losers, or were the real winners Carlos Boozer, who they ended up with in an amnesty transaction, or signing Wesley Johnson, trading for Jeremy Lin, Ed Davis? That's who this team started loading up with, and guess what? It didn't work out. You know what else didn't work out? Let's look at the coaches, because since 2013, they had 5 different coaches. Mike Brown for a little while off the Cleveland gig. They bring in Mike D'Antoni. He went 27-55. He lasted 1 season. Magic Johnson, when D'Antoni got fired, tweeted out this: "Happy days are here again," except they weren't, because Byron Scott went 21-61 and then 17-65 before he was replaced by Luke Walton, who I actually think did a better job than he was given credit for, considering how young this team was the entire time. But Luke Walton, going into his 3rd year, when they grabbed that guy LeBron James, don't worry, folks, I'll get to that point of this because that definitely changed things as much as anything else. But remember, Magic said, don't worry about it. You know, it's a new team. Magic said that LeBron got off to a bad start in Miami and it was a little tough in the beginning with Cleveland. Well, guess what? It was tough that first year in LA as well. And Luke Walton's Lakers went 2-5, and then Luke Walton got ripped by Magic Johnson. What happened to the patience? And before we get to the end of the Luke Walton part, we have to get to the beginning of the Magic Johnson part, because he was brought in as the team president with Rob Pelinka, who was going to be the Lakers general manager in early 2017. And from the outside, we thought, wait, Kobe's former agent, Pelinka, working with Magic, do they have much of a relationship?
She said, I'm going to put you with Rob Pelinka, because I didn't know Rob.
I guess not. The craziest part about the Magic Johnson story isn't the start of it or that he didn't know Pelinka. It's that once he realized that he couldn't fire Luke Walton when he was apparently told that he could, and then he said that he couldn't, he just decided to resign. You're like, what is going on here? And then he actually gave this as part of his explanation for stepping down as Lakers president.
So today, I'm going to step down as a president.
I had more fun when I was able to be the big brother and ambassador to everybody. You know, I thought about Dwayne Wade retiring tomorrow, and I can't even tweet it out or can't be there.
And then Magic went on First Take, where he essentially blamed Pelinka for the reason why he himself wanted to step down from the job.
Rob was saying things, and
Rob Pelinka,
and I didn't like those things being said behind my back, that I wasn't in the office enough and so on and on. I said, it's time for me to go.
Now, we have to go back to the player part of this, because bringing in LeBron James in 2018 was the thing everybody had been waiting on. And Magic Johnson certainly take credit for it, but if you ask LeBron, I don't know if it was going to be Magic Johnson, Pepper Johnson, Johnson & Johnson. I don't think it really mattered at that point. The weird part is that he ended up there by himself. And let's go back to that 2018 summer, because that was the summer where it's who's coming with me, right? Jerry Maguire style, except nobody was going besides Rondo, JaVale McGee, and Lance Stevenson. And then the rest of us were going, what the hell are they doing? What happened to Paul George? Where are the rest of the guys coming with the Lakers? And as you mentioned, LeBron gets hurt. The whole season ends up being a wash. Luke Walton is fired at the end of the year. Now we've had Magic resign. And then, with a year of rumors circulating that they were going to trade all the young players for Anthony Davis, in which Jesse Buss and the scouting department seem to never get any credit in any of these Lakers storylines because they have put together good pieces through the draft, they finally pulled the trigger on this Davis trade that everybody expected to happen. So at one point, LeBron LeBron, post-Kobe, was the guy that nobody wanted to play with until somebody who's really good wanted to play with him. And then Davis ends up in Los Angeles. But there's one more part. Pelinka apparently didn't know the rules about the Anthony Davis trade and was going to mess up the salary cap until it was reported later on that he actually did know the rules. But nobody knew what to do with this. And the final piece of all of this mess is who's going to coach him. Is it Ty Lue or Monty Williams? Monty Williams said no to the Lakers to go to Phoenix. Ty Lue said yes because we saw a cake, and then he said no because it was only 3 years and $18 million, and he wanted more money and he wanted more years. So then you end up with Frank Vogel, who, let's face it, with coaches, they're just up and down all over the place. And if you're leaving Orlando after a bad year, that's not somebody Lakers fans are going to sign off on, but that's who you got. So as bad as all of this stuff was, that's 7 years of bad headlines, real bad headlines, stuff that's accurate, not made up. As bad as that all was, what did it mean? It didn't really mean anything. Look, I got to be fair about this too and keep myself in check because I don't want Sacramento Kings fans saying, hey, does this mean we're just a year away? This doesn't apply to everybody. LeBron has a lot to do with that, adding AD and also the location of Los Angeles. But everything I just went through there over that 7-year history, in the moment you're going, hey, this is bad, isn't it? Yes, it is. But the other question you should ask yourself is, does this mean anything? And the answer is usually no. And none of it meant enough to get in the way of the Lakers raising their 17th banner after this season.